We're into stoppage time and Oxford have got 2 against 1 defender.
It still gives me goosebumps watching it now. After scoring the goal, seeing the whole place erupt, we knew we'd done it. All the players running towards me. I don't think there's anything I could do in my life that could replicate that feeling. Obviously, when you have your kids, it's a great feeling, best feeling in the world. But this is different. Nothing's ever going to be able to replicate that feeling.
Well, welcome to episode 12, would you believe, of You Are My Oxford podcast. Can you believe it? I certainly can't. Well, it's been over a month, of course, since the end of the season, and almost that long since our last episode, Dan. How's the summer break? Presumably you've been on a beach the whole time.
I wish, Matt. No break for me. As you know, I'm always grafting and always thinking about what's next in our sensational podcast series. I think I've done quite well in this one, though.
Mate, a bit massive round of applause on this one, by the way. You really have not disappointed, I think that's fair to say, because we've got the man who, I guess, I think this is fair to say, arguably scored the most important goal in our great club's history. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by none other than the wonderful Alfie Potter. Massive clap all round. Alfie, welcome to the show. Of course, I'm guessing you are an avid listener to our pod. I'm sure you know us very well. I guess this must be a career highlight for you, Alfie.
Yeah, for sure. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Alfie, I've got a question to start, and this slightly weird question. Like, whenever you hear the name Oxford United, like you're watching on TV or you're looking in the newspaper or you listen to the radio or whatever, and you hear Oxford United, do you think I pretty much scored the goal that saved the club? Because that's what's come out since, right? You know, Kelvin Thomas said if we hadn't gone up that day, the club would have been absolutely up the creek. So when you hear Oxford United, do you think, I played a massive part in that club's survival and history, I suppose? Yeah,
look, I know it was an important goal at the time, but it could have been any club, and securing promotion in the 91st minute or whatever, when we was under a bit of pressure, would have felt like an important goal no matter what. It was only, I think it was a 10-year anniversary, I think, when Kelvin stood on stage with Chris, and they spoke about actually the issues off the pitch and how important it was and the possible consequences if we didn't go up that day. And I think that was when it really hit home 10 years later, how important it was. But then I've seen a couple of Wembley appearances since for the club. I've seen them promoted to the Championship now. It's hard to, I don't really look at it and see my goal as being the most important, because where the club is now compared to where it was is chalk and cheese, really. Delighted to see it as well.
Yeah, but if it hadn't been for you, Alfie, if it hadn't been for you, if you don't mind, we will talk about that goal quite a lot, I think, over the next hour or so. But let's, if you don't mind, kind of take it right back to the beginning and tell us a bit about your journey becoming a footballer. Where did it all start? When did you realise that you wanted to make a career out of the game?
I'm not sure when I realised I wanted to make a career out of it. For as long as I can remember, I loved playing it. From what I gather, I got into it quite late. I see kids over the fields on a Saturday now playing at 5 and 6. I think I didn't start playing till maybe 8. My dad was still playing football at the time, only amateur level. He was in academies when he was a kid, and because he couldn't get around the country, he just ended up going to play with his mates. He was good. He was a striker, scored a lot of goals. So he couldn't really get me into football at the start. And then I think once I got to an age where I started really showing an interest, he ended up sacrificing pretty much his whole life for my football. But I think, 8, I started playing locally. And I think I was picked up by Millwall at the age of 10. I'd been at Wimbledon, the old Wimbledon, for a year or so, but hadn't been signed on, was kind of just training for them. I'd been on trial at Arsenal, trial day, but then I eventually got signed by Millwall, I think at the age of 10, and I was there until 16 when I got let go. The reason for being let go was I was too small, and at the time I was small when I made my professional debut, but at 16 I was tiny, and there was no muscle on me, no fat on me. But they said technically I was the best player there for them, but I wasn't good enough for it, or I wasn't capable of playing youth team football at the time. They wanted me to stay around to see if I developed, if my body developed, but I made the decision to leave. And I had a few calls to go on trial at places, and I kind of took a knock really. I didn't really want to go anywhere on trial. And I ended up, someone recommended a college over in East London. It's called Barking Abbey, and they run a football scholarship, a full-time football and education sort of scholarship alongside a BTEC in sports science. And basically they were just picking up boys in London who had been released from West Ham's, your Palaces. And then I think a year into that, we played Peterborough United in Peterborough United. Darren Ferguson had just taken over, and he was setting up the youth team, because I think they had folded their youth team at one point. So they were just getting it going again. We played a friendly against them. I had a really good game. He was watching. He asked me to come on trial. And then kind of all went from there, really.
And the rest, as they say, is history. What was it like to get that first pro contract?
It was incredible. It was all a bit of a whirlwind, because, like I say, I was at college and I weren't really. I think at that point, I don't think I had any expectation to be a professional footballer at that point. I knew I was good. I knew I was better than everyone at the college. I know I was better than most of the people on the teams we were playing, and we were playing a lot of professional clubs. I think the year above me got to the 5th round proper of the FA Youth Cup, and along the way they'd beaten West Brom, Leyton Orient, a couple of other league clubs. Eventually got beat by Brentford, who the previous round had beaten Arsenal. So it was a real good setup there. At the time, they were signing all the best talent out of the non-league. Your Aaron McLean's, your Craig Mackail-Smiths, George Boyd. Their team was, for that level, their team was brilliant. They got promoted. My first season got promoted from League Two. Following season got promoted from League One up to the Championship. So I spent a lot of time out on loan. I was only 18. Spent a lot of time out on loan. Played the odd game here and there. But I think Darren Ferguson's background, obviously his dad's Alex Ferguson. It was the first time I'd been around a professional environment. I think it was, for my development, it was although I didn't make many appearances, I think it was the perfect club for me at the time.
So your first loan move out from Peterborough, you went to Havant and Waterlooville, and that was the first time I actually heard of you, because you had one particularly famous TV appearance, one kind of really big profile game. Talk us through that day. What happened that day?
Well, that actually wasn't my first loan move. My first loan move was to Grays Athletic. Turn up training. I'll go on to the Liverpool story after, but I turned up at training on my first day at Grays Athletic with my agent. And Justin Edinburgh was the manager at the time, and he didn't know who I was, didn't know he'd even signed me. So it was kind of like, what's going on here? And apparently it was the chairman who had signed me. So I didn't really stand a chance there, to be honest. I was there for a month. Wasn't even getting in the squads to start with. I think I was 18 and then done okay, but then went straight back to Peterborough after that. And it was short while after that I went to Havant, and obviously the Liverpool game, which was incredible, to be honest with you. How old was I? Was I 8? No, I was 19 at this point, because it was late January. It's hard to put into words, that game, really, because...
For people just listening to our podcast, not watching it, we're showing here the highlights of Alfie's sensational goal, which put Havant 2-1 up at Liverpool.
Yeah, that's it. Some of the bookies had that down as an own goal, and I had friends and family with money on me to score. They were devastated.
Spoken like a proper attacker, definitely your goal.
I don't know how they took that off me. That's on target. Do you know what I mean?
I've got to say, it's an incredible stat. You scored at Anfield, of course. You scored at Wembley. Answer me this: how many times have you dropped that into conversation? Come on, when you're at the bar or something, and you went for a drink, buy a drink or something. But surely you've gone, excuse me, I've scored at Anfield and at Wembley. Surely you've used that.
No, to be honest with you, unless I'm saying it in a joking way, then no. But I mean, it gets brought up enough. I don't need to bring it up. It gets brought up enough, and I mean, it's not. I mean, I feel like I had a decent league career. I feel like I played a lot of games for some good clubs at that level. So I don't want to be remembered for just Wembley and Liverpool. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing to be remembered for. At the end, there's a lot of people who have had a better career than me that haven't had the experiences that I've had.
I remember at the time as well, both Matt and I were working at BBC Sport at the time, so we're kind of in the sports media. And I remember in the build-up to that game at Anfield, you were like the subject of like lots of press reports. You were like, Sky had done pieces with you, I think. And I remember seeing like interviews with you in the newspaper and stuff. And I have to say a lot of it was based around your surname, Potter, and your boyish good looks at the time. You had that kind of, Harry Potter-ish look, I guess.
Yeah.
How was that for you, that whole kind of build-up, being thrust into the limelight like that?
It was surreal, to be honest. Yeah, it was. I was just enjoying it all. It was a great group of boys down at Havant. Real old school change room. I mean, I got Charlie Oatway of Brighton. Hell of a character. If you speak to anyone in football about him, he's an absolute nutter. But he was first team coach. He player first team coach at Havant, and he was the one who got me down there. And he kind of took me under his wing. The whole changing room was brilliant. These were non-league. These were semi-pro players. You had a bin man, you had a taxi driver, and this kind of, as much as I was loving it all, they just kind of all took it in their stride and kept me grounded with it all. And I just enjoyed every minute of it. I kind of knew that I probably hoped there was going to be more occasions like that, but in the back of my mind, I probably knew that this wasn't a regular occurrence for a lower league sort of player.
Was Oxford your next move then? And if it was, how did that move come about?
No, my next move after the Liverpool game, I got called back. So I was supposed to be there for a little while longer. I got called back by Peterborough a few days after. I then spent the next 10 games in the squad on the bench in League Two. Didn't get brought on once, not one appearance, which it killed me a bit, to be honest with you. I would have loved to have stayed at Havant. We was trying to make the playoffs at the same time. I was loving my time there. Now, getting called back wasn't the worst thing in the world, because obviously my goal was to play in the leagues. But if I'm honest, I think the reason for being called back was obviously the attention I was getting after the Liverpool game. I only had 6 months left on my deal. From there, I was 19. There was interest, and I just think it was, if I would have carried on at Havant in the Conference South playing as well as I was playing, then I just think they kind of wanted to dampen that a bit. And then I went back and I signed a 3-year deal from there. I didn't play any appearances, but they got me on a new deal, and then they sent me back out on loan again the following season to Kettering. And I spent a season at Kettering. Again, really enjoyed it. It was a different type of football. We had Mark Cooper was the manager. They had just stepped up from the Conference North into the National League. And that was a lot more physical and a lot more demanding than the Conference South that I had got used to the previous season. So that was another big step in my development, to be honest. I played a lot of games that season, probably 40 odd games. And then towards the end of the season, we played Oxford United, and Oxford United were going. Chris Wilder had taken over, and they'd come from nowhere to nearly nicking a playoff spot. And we played them towards the end of the season. I can't remember what the score was, but I had a absolutely worldie of a game up against Kev Sandwith, and I think I remember getting Kev Sandwith sent off, and had a real good game. And then at the end of that season, Chris Wilder contacted Guy Branston, who was at Kettering with me, and just basically said, would he be up for coming Oxford? Now I still had, was it 2 years or 1 year? I think I still had 2 years on my, I had 2 years still on my Peterborough deal. So I signed for a year on loan at Oxford, before obviously the following season signing permanently.
You came to Oxford. Obviously, it's a team that was flying at the end of the previous season. Obviously, they started the season really, really well. I've got your first goal, actually. I just thought we'd show you this. This is Stevenage. That's your first ever goal for us. Sorry about the crap video quality, but it's YouTube. I'm just trolling YouTube for it. What was that team like? Who are the big characters? And what was the kind of buzz around the club at the time?
I loved it from the minute I turned up. Luckily, there was some of my friends from back home, from Islington, Bethnal Green sort of way, they'd said, someone we know really well is there, Sam Deering. So I got there, and straight away there was someone who kind of from my area, someone familiar, and I struck up a real good friendship with him straight away. And then you had your big characters like obviously Beano, Mark Crichton, It was a team of men, and I was still a kid at this point, so it's quite a daunting changing room. But I loved every minute of it. And then you had Muzzer. Muzzer was a nutter. I still speak to Muzzer every now and then. Now, Chappie, another big character. We had Jake Wright come in, who I'm still real good friends with now. Danny Borman, nutter. It was just a fun change room to be a part of.
Did it feel like a place when you arrived? Did it feel like a place that was going places? What was it like coming into the building?
I mean, I know it's only got 3 stands, but for me, I'd come from Peterborough's ground, who at the time was a very old stadium, pretty run down, change rooms, everything needed a bit of work. And I'd gone to Oxford. It felt like a bigger club to me. And do you know what? It probably is a bigger club. Peterborough were probably playing, well, a Peterborough League, yeah, so Peterborough below them now. At the time, they were playing at a higher level, but I could sense that Oxford United was a bigger club. So I didn't feel like I had taken a step backwards as such. It kind of felt like I was taking a step forwards because I wasn't playing at Peterborough, and I've come to this big club, and all of a sudden now I've got a chance to make a name for myself at this club.
I think Dan wants to show another couple of your goals against Ebbsfleet, Dan.
Yeah, so these are the first time I actually saw you score like live in the flesh. A couple of absolutely beautiful goals here. My memory of this game, though, is afterwards Chris Wilder had like an absolutely epic rant. I think it was a rant where he basically said, the fans have got to forget about, all the history of the club. They're entitled, they need to accept where they are. And that was the first time we really saw him like flip his lid. What was Chris Wilder like? Was he someone who had like a real temper on him?
When you're winning games, he's the best manager I've ever played for. I've always said it. I said it before he went to Sheffield. He got the best out of me. If things weren't going well, you'd know about it. It wasn't a pleasant training ground to be around if off the back of a bad result. But he was very emotional with the results. But he was brilliant. His main focus was putting a good team together, putting a good changing room together, getting the right personality, getting the right character. The football kind of was secondary. Obviously, he wouldn't sign a bad player just because they was a good character, but that was the main focus of him. And if anything upset sort of the group, he would deal with it straight away in whatever way he see fit. And he's carried that. I still speak to people that have played for him at the top level, and it's still very much the same. He was brilliant, I think, and I think he is very emotional. When I had him at Northampton and we got into a bit of trouble, the chairman at the time, I think we wasn't being paid. There was a real chance the club was going under, and he did this big passionate speech, Notts County away on the pitch. A week later, the club was being taken over. I think he knows what he's got to say and what he's got to do, to be honest with you. And maybe sometimes I know it rubbed the Oxford fans up the wrong way at times. But I think in hindsight now, if they look back, he'd done a hell of a lot of good things for the club. And he is a good manager, and he's gone on to prove that.
I think I'm right in saying, Dan, it was after Christmas, after that absolute game. I think we were flying, weren't we? We were flying high in the league, and then we had a wobble turned into a kind of serious wobble. And we ended up, was it third that season? What was that like behind the scenes when we were flying and then kind of dropped a bit? Well, more than dropped a bit.
We plummeted. It was tough. I think at one point, if I remember rightly, I might be a little bit off with the actual figures here, but I'm sure at one point we were 12 points clear with a game in hand. And yeah, the wobble started after Christmas, and then I think there was probably a bit of panic. Maybe on Chris's behalf, maybe the club's behalf, and we just started making loads of signings, loads of loan signings, and I don't know, it probably changed, it upset the dressing room a bit, maybe, and we was on a terrible run. And I think towards the end of the season, with particularly the playoffs in mind, once we realised we'd thrown the league away, he kind of and he's actually said this, he made his decision. He already knew his starting team for the playoffs weeks and weeks and weeks before the end of the season, and he kind of then just use that build up towards then to get us in the best shape for the playoffs. So I think the wobble was there, and I think there was a bit of panic set in, but we managed to recover it just in time.
Why do you think he signed all those players? Because I just remember being really pissed off about it, to be honest. Like, we had this incredible team, a real solid attacking unit. And like, we already had good players. Like, you know, you were quite often on the bench. Sam Deering was quite often on the bench. We had Jamie Cook often on the bench. And then suddenly he's bringing in Franny Green and John Grant and all these kind of like players who just, you know, played a couple of games and disappeared. What was his thinking? Did he make an excuse for it? Did he explain why he was doing it?
No, I don't know. Maybe we just, obviously we'd started off on the bad run, and maybe it was just trying to make these signings to freshen it up. Maybe put a bit of pressure on the boys that are already there to, I don't know, maybe not be too comfortable. I'm not sure. Who knows? Probably didn't work out as he would have liked it to. He would have liked to have made them signings, them come in and hit the ground running, and all of a sudden we're back on top again. Doesn't quite work like that at times, but we sorted it out in time. And then we kind of went back to the team the squad that started the season, and and we got over the line.
Can you talk us through just going in, you know, towards the end of the season? Obviously, I think we picked up a bit of form going into the playoffs, but then obviously looking across and Luton are flying. And be honest now, how confident going into those playoffs were you? Thinking and having one eye on maybe meeting Luton in the final. What were the thoughts going into the playoffs themselves?
I think we were confident, to be honest with you. Particularly the final. I mean, it would have been a great final to have Luton there. I'd imagine it. To be honest with you, it probably broke. I know they broke the record at the weekend, 52,000. I was at the game, but there'd have been more if Luton got to the final that season for sure. So it was a little bit of a shame that they weren't there, but at the same time, we really fancied ourselves against York. I think in the games before against Rushden and Diamonds, we were very comfortable. I don't think at any point did I feel like we was going to get beat, and I think it had a feeling of inevitability. To be honest with you, I just sensed it was our year.
How much of a part did Chris Wilder play in kind of getting the confidence back up amongst the team?
Yeah, massive part. And like I said, he kind of went back to the players who he had trusted in the first half of the season, and I think that was a vote of confidence in itself. The boys took positives from that, and everything, the whole build up towards the playoffs. I mean, we went down and we spent some time at Wembley within the days leading up to it. He didn't want us to walk out on the day and be overawed by it, so we soaked it all in. He had a couple of people come and speak to us the night before the game, a couple of inspirational talks and whatnot. I think there wasn't many nerves. I say there wasn't many nerves. I was nervous watching on the bench. I wasn't nervous once I got on the pitch, but watching on the bench, full of nerves. But the group as a whole, it was just excitement, I think. And like I said, I didn't at any point, there was no point in me that thought we was ever going to lose.
Dan made the point earlier. I think Kelvin Thomas spoke afterwards of what would have happened to the club if it hadn't won that day. It was so massive for the club. Did you all guys, you know, when you're going out on the pitch, you almost have to remove yourselves for that? And do you even realise that? Because obviously as fans, we've got the weight of everything, you know, that whole history of supporting the club. For you guys, you're in training every day, looking around you. So you're almost a bit detached from that weight of expectation.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everyone knew it was massive for the club. Oxford United shouldn't have been at that level, and they'd been stuck down there for 4 years. But they kept it very. We didn't know how important. We didn't know that if we didn't win, then the club was in big trouble. They kept that from us, which obviously you would do. But yeah, the fans are obviously a lot more emotionally invested in it because it's their club. They've had the highs already, and they're experiencing the lows now. And us as players, and I love the football club. I love Oxford United. It gave me my career. But at the same time, there's always another. We're always going to go and play somewhere. So we're not as emotionally connected to the game. For myself, I feel like I am now. I'm an Oxford United fan. But yeah, for you, I'd imagine for you fans, it was probably a hell of a lot more scary than it probably was for us at the time.
Matt, I just want to ask you this actually. Matt, how did you feel on the day? Do you remember it?
I do remember it. And actually, I went with a big group, but I mean, I'll just speak about the moment where I was like, this is massive, this is huge. And I'd like to get your reaction to this, Alfie, as well. Seeing 33, 34, 35,000 Oxford fans there, and then 10,000 York fans there, suddenly my chest just puffed out and I was like, we are here. This is incredible. This needs to work out.
No, definitely. It felt when we walked out and we see the difference in the two sides. We felt like the bigger team. We felt like, do you know what I mean? We felt superior. I don't know if everyone would say that. I certainly felt like I was a part of the superior club. And the way the boys started the game, we absolutely battered them for most of the first half. To be honest with you, we were unbelievable. It was only with the unfortunate goal really that swung it kind of back the other way. But yeah, the whole day I think was just set up for us to win.
What about you, Dan?
I felt so sick all that day. I tried to get drunk before the game and I just couldn't. I couldn't drink anything. I was just too nervous to drink. I met my wife and my son, who was like 2 at the time, and like she brought him along to the game. I'd meant to have been going out getting drunk before the game, and I just couldn't manage it. So I met them like outside the stadium. Went inside. Like my son, he burst into tears when the fireworks went off at the beginning. So that kind of for some reason, that just totally calmed me down. You know, I suddenly had to deal with like my 2-year-old son who's like overawed by the whole day. So I suddenly just, lost that kind of sense of sheer blind panic about the game. And then obviously, as you say, Alfie went 2-0 up, totally cruising. And I was like, everything's fine. This is just going to be the perfect day. And then bloody Ryan Clark drops it. What's said at half time, Alfie, when you're going in and like you've just had as a team, they've just had a brilliant half, and then one player's dropped an absolute clanger.
Everyone would have just been getting his head up. I can't really remember, to be honest with you, but I've said it a few times. I've got Clarkey to thank, basically, because if Clarkey don't chuck that in, my goal means nothing. Not my goal means nothing, but my goal don't mean what it meant. So at the end of the day, I've always said to Clarkey, whenever I've done chats with him before on Zoom with people, and whenever I see him, it's thanks to Clarkey that my goal meant so much.
Well, let's pick up on that, because you're right. I've just been kind of reacquainting myself with the game and that kind of thing. And the second half, for a while was a bit of a tricky watch. Of course, you're introduced 67 minutes, and we know, obviously history will tell us the impact and the moment that you had. But aside from the goal, what an impact you did have overall on the game. You set up a great chance for Bino, I think it was. What were you thinking when, and we're now seeing this chance now, this happened, Bino's through on goal, over and wide.
He puts them away every time normally. Do you know what? When I first come on, my first 2 or 3 touches were terrible. And I think that was just getting the nerves out. But I think I must have done something positive, and that was it. Then the nerves were gone after that, and I really played my way into the game. But they were pushing forward. They were looking for the equaliser. And whenever I was picking it up, I just felt like there was so much space for me to run into. And I had Sam with me as well. I used to love playing with Sam. Similar player, I would love picking it up and running with it. And I think they were quite brave substitutions actually from Chris, because he could have just tried to shore up the defence. But instead he's gone with attackers to try and get us back on top, and it worked.
I guess we've got to watch the goal now. There's a precise moment where I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to score this. But I want you to tell us the precise moment you thought, I'm in here. All right, there must be a precise moment. So I'm going to play the goal back. I just want you to say, that's the moment I knew we had a really, really good chance. All right, so here we go. First of all, it's the worst corner I think ever taken in the history of football.
Great header from Reece, though.
Yeah.
To be fair, when I turn here, I can't believe how much space there is. And it's not a great ball to Sam. And I think, do you know what? I think from this point on here, I don't actually think there was much thought going into anything. I was just in autopilot. And it's probably, I've said it before, it's probably the most composed I've ever been in front of goal. Normally those sort of chances, you end up missing. He had too much time, didn't know what to do. But honestly, there was no thinking.
It almost looks like you've played the ball out slightly wider to Sam, so he has to pass it back to you.
Yeah, that has been mentioned before. I think I was waiting for him to take it to the corner to kill the game, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it worked. Listen, it wasn't a great. I don't know whether I was trying to slip him in or I don't know what I was trying to do. It wasn't a particularly great ball, but it only gave him one option really, and that was to give it back to me. So,
how many times
yeah,
have you watched that goal
over the last 15 years? I couldn't even tell you, to be honest. Like, it still gives me goosebumps watching it now. It's a moment that I will never. The feeling after scoring the goal, seeing the whole place erupt. Just we knew we'd done it. All the players coming over, all the players running towards me. I don't think there's anything I could do in my life that could replicate that feeling. Obviously, when you have your kids, it's a great feeling, best feeling in the world. But this is different. Nothing's ever going to be able to replicate that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, you can see absolutely what you're saying there. You can see what it means to the fans in the stands. You can see what it means to the players on the pitch. You can see what it means to Chris Wilder. Talk us through what happened after the final whistle. What was the dressing room like in that initial moment and the kind of the days after
that? I'll try and tell you what I can remember because for the next 4 days, there's not much I can remember. Obviously, the celebrations on the pitch, everyone was just taking it all in, celebrating with the fans. And then when we went back inside, I had to go and do a press conference with Chris and somebody else. So I kind of missed all the celebrations in the changing room. By the time I'd got back into the changing room, everyone was now getting showered. And then from there, we had a room in one of the hotels next to the stadium for all friends and family. We went back there, had a few drinks, bit of a party. Kelvin, Chris got up, done some speeches. And then that night, the majority of us went out in London. So because I was from London, it was on me. I'd already arranged the night out, to be honest with you. I'd got it all sorted. Luckily, we won. So most of us ended up, the odd few people went back to Oxford with their family, out all night that night, no sleep, back up to Oxford the following day. I think we did some more celebrating the following day. And then I think the open top bus was, I can't actually remember. It's all a blur to me, to be honest. I don't know whether it was the day after or the following day. But it was just, I was just with the boys for the next 3 or 4 days. Even after the bus parade, we stayed with each other. And it was just making the most of it, to be honest. It was a great few days. The open top bus blew my mind. I couldn't believe it was like we'd been promoted from the conference, but it was like years ago when Arsenal were winning the Premier Leagues. I would go to Islington Town Hall and watch the parades and whatnot, and it was on par with that. And it blew my mind that I was involved in something like that.
Was it a no-brainer then to sign permanently? Because you're still a lone player, right?
So the deal hadn't been done. From what I remember, conversations had already been had with Chris, and my mind was made up. There was no way I was not staying as long as Chris wanted me. Obviously, the fans had took a shine to me. I loved playing for the club. I loved the people around the club. Mickey Lewis, Chris, Kelvin. It was just a brilliant group of people. A well supported club. There was no way I was leaving. I didn't. Peterborough had gone up to the Championship anyway, so there was no real chance I was going back there. So they could have offered me absolutely anything, and I would have signed.
How do you then reflect on the next few seasons after that? Because I think, we're a selfish lot, often Oxford fans, and I think a lot of fans kind of expected us to then kick on from there and maybe go straight up again the following season. That didn't happen. There were a few high points, of course. Yeah, how do you reflect on kind of the next season once we got into the league?
Disappointment, really, because from then on, I played many seasons in League Two, and I'd see the clubs that were making it to the playoffs and the clubs that were getting promoted, and there weren't anyone better than us, and we'd always go on good runs, and we'd always be there or thereabouts, and then the inevitable would happen, and we'd go on a terrible run, and we'd just fall away. So there's a lot of a lot of regret and a lot of disappointment that I never had more success with Oxford United, to be honest with you. I believe the club was set up to kick on. At times we had squads good enough to kick on, but for one reason or another, we just couldn't do it.
Do you think Chris Wilder ripped up that team a bit too quickly? Like your Matt Greens and Crichton left quite quickly afterwards as well, didn't they? Some really important players I just felt he never really gave a chance to in the league.
Yeah. I suppose he just tried to... I suppose the plan was to not stand still and try and kick on again. And maybe there were some players who should have been given more of a chance. But who's to say we would have had any success if we would have kept that team a little bit longer. To be honest, I can't remember the time frames of when people like Greeny or Kreitz actually left after. I don't know if it was the following season, was it? But I still think we had size that was good enough to get promoted out of that league, and it only really got ourselves to blame for why we never.
We still had some really, really high points, as you kind of alluded to there. I'm not sure if you heard, but Radio Oxford recently did a feature of the 10 best games Oxford have played since 2010. And the day you ran riot at Fratton Park was one of them. What do you remember about that day? And, is it fair to say that was your best ever performance in the yellow shirt?
I mean, you've probably got to look at the goals and the assists and say, yeah, I mean, it's an easy one to remember because there was output, there was the goals and the assists. But I mean, I've had other games where I've produced moments like that, but probably didn't back it up with end product like this game. But I mean, in terms of the whole day, the game, obviously Pompey favourites for League Two, sold out stadium, fans had just taken ownership of the club. The big favourites, going down 1-0 early on, to come back and do what we did to them was, I think, at that point, everyone probably thought, actually, this could be a season where we really kick on. I loved playing in that team. We had some real good players. That day was brilliant, and I think, I can't remember, did we start that season well, or there was a couple of seasons where we started well and then we'd go on a terrible run. I'm not sure if that was one of them.
Looking at the highlights there, you look like such a player. And, we watched you a lot, but you were such a player on your day. Did a chance for a bigger move ever come about? Or, were there ever any whispers of bigger teams being interested in you? Because as you said, you spent most of your career playing in League Two. And when you look at you playing like that, that is not a League Two player. That's a kind of championship player.
Yeah, there was a lot of whispers, particularly there was a couple of seasons. I think I had a real good season. I scored, I think it was 11 goals, I'm not sure how many assists. I was really starting to kick on. There was a lot of rumours, a lot of whispers of this club, that club. Started the following season. So I'd come back from a broken ankle and then I had a real good season. And then I started the following season, I think it was the Pompey game that started. And then I scored a goal shortly after against Burton. I was doing really, really well. More rumours. And then I broke my ankle again, the other ankle this time. And when I eventually come back from that was when Mickey Lou was in charge, actually. And I rushed back. I was desperate to get back. It was on a terrible run. I felt like I could help the team. And I rushed back from my broken ankle. I was playing in pain and I was playing poorly. And I just never really recovered from it after. But for one reason or another, a move never materialised. Yeah, it is what it is, I suppose. I mean, I do feel like you say, on my day, I was capable of playing higher, but clearly I just didn't produce it enough to get that move. I do feel like I was unfortunate with injuries, and like I say, the second broken ankle really knocked me. I struggled physically and mentally after that for a long time.
Should we speak about a few of those high moments? Because we asked you to kind of pick out a few of those moments. And of course, you scored a winner against Swindon. So that's another one to kind of add to those incredible achievements. Anfield, Wembley, scoring a winner against Swindon. Apologies for a bit of poor quality video here, but talk us through this one and what this felt like.
I think I come on late in this game. Yeah, I think I was a late substitute. I think that was a 1-0 last minute winner, wasn't it? To be fair, Bino never normally squares there. Bino's going for goal, so I was pretty surprised he squared it. Actually, no, he's pretty wide. It's the right decision. But yeah, it was just one I didn't keep my head over it and score on. But it's whenever I score goals, when you say talk me through it. Normally, it's just so instinctive that there's not much real thought that goes into it. When I have time to think, like I say, I missed, and that was one of my big problems. I used to miss a lot of chances when I had too much time to think. That's probably a reason why I never had the numbers at times to kind of back up the performances or the numbers to get me the move higher up. But yeah, scoring against Swindon, I mean, that was, I suppose these goals are kind of what endeared me to the Oxford United fans. The majority of them liked me. Obviously, there's always some that won't. But I love scoring them goals. I loved playing in front of the Oxford United fans. I loved hearing my song sung. And I never had that. I never really had that anywhere else. So in the 5.5 years there, I look back on it. Although it ended not as I would have liked, I look back on my time at Oxford United and those goals scored very, very fondly.
I was trying to remember your song this morning. I was coming into work. I was trying to remember what was your song? Will you sing it for us?
Oh, I can't sing it. I'll tell you the words. There was only 2 words anyway, to be honest with you. And that was Ole, Ole, Alfie, Alfie. That was it. But I used to sing it and I used to love it.
We asked you, as I said, to mention a couple of goals. We found one of your Burton goals that you mentioned. You said there are 2 Burton goals. I think the first one you talked about earlier, I couldn't find that for love nor money anywhere on the internet, but I did find this other one, which is also a beauty. That beautiful purple shirt of that era. Look at these feet, man. Magic feet. Ole, 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 ole. Alfie.
That's the one. Yeah, I scored one the season before. I scored a similar goal. It was kind of on the same side, a bit of a mazy. But I can't exactly remember what it was, and I've never been able to find it since either. I don't think I'm making it up. Maybe it don't exist, but I'm sure I did.
Of course, you spent a lot of time at Oxford City as well, and I was trying to wrap my brains because obviously the players have gone on from Oxford United to play at Oxford City over the years, but there can't be too many who've kind of done a good 5 or 6 years at each club. So we think that you do deserve to be granted with the freedom of Oxford and indeed the whole county. But honestly, how proud does it make you that you've made such an impact on Oxfordshire football, Oxford United, and more generally across Oxford non-league football as well?
Yeah, look, I always say this. Oxford as a city, as a place, has probably given me everything. Obviously, the football club gave me my real... Although I first signed my professional contract at Peterborough, Oxford United gave me the chance to play week in, week out at a big club. From there, I met my wife. I've now got 3 kids. I'm from London originally. I'm settled now in Oxford. So Oxford has pretty much given me everything. And I've loved my time at Oxford City. Like you're saying, total now, that's coming up to probably 11 years that I've played football in Oxford. 2 really good clubs. Obviously, one's playing in the Championship, one's playing in Conference North. Completely different setups, completely different clubs. But I've loved both of them, and I'm glad there isn't a rivalry between the 2. I suppose if Oxford City were ever to climb the heights that Oxford United are, then there might be. But listen, I've loved every minute of it. I was gutted the way my time at Oxford United ended. I wish I could have got back to the form that I'd shown in previous seasons. But hopefully the fans don't just remember me for Wembley. I'd like to think I did a little bit more than just Wembley for Oxford United.
How would you like the fans to remember you?
I hope I excited them at times. Obviously, listen, Wembley's always going to be the goal, and I can't complain with Wembley because I'm very, very fortunate to be the one who scored that goal. But how would I like them to remember me? I always gave my all. I wasn't always the best. Typical winger, typical League Two winger. Some weeks very, very good. Other weeks very, very poor. I do think for a couple of seasons I was a lot more consistent and produced performances more often than not. But yeah, I always gave my all, and I loved playing for the club, which is the main thing. I loved playing for the fans. I loved hearing my song. So yeah, just thankful I got to have a bit of success with Oxford United, and thankful to have scored that goal that will be remembered for as long as Oxford United go.
Alfie, you will be fondly remembered at Oxford United forever. Nearly 200 games, I think, 28 goals. Incredible. Just kind of finally to wrap things up, just give us an update what you're kind of up to now. We know that you're still with Oxford City. I think you've just signed a new contract. I hope I'm not revealing anything too much there. What does kind of the future hold for you? Will you be staying around in Oxfordshire?
Yeah. So I'm settled in Oxford now. My kids go to school in Oxford. I love the place. I'm from London originally. I know, Dan, you still live in London. I'm not sure where you live, Matt, but I'm glad I'm bringing my kids up in Oxford now as opposed to where I grew up in London. So I will be staying around. I'm going to keep playing for as long as my legs can go. I mean, I'm still one of the fittest in the team. I still cover the most distance. Still do one of the most sprints. I may not be the fastest anymore, but I'm certainly not one of the slowest. So until all those things start to deteriorate, I'll carry on playing, whether that's another year, 2 years, 3 years, 4, who knows. But whilst I feel I can help, then I will carry on playing. And then who knows what happens after that. I always said I wouldn't really, once I'm finished playing, I probably will leave football, do nothing else in football, go down a different path. But the closer it gets to the end, the more I realise I don't think I could ever just leave football. I mean, I went to the playoff final the other day between Oldham and they play Southend, and a friend of mine was coaching set up at Oldham, and obviously won in dramatic fashion. I see him after, and he said, "It's coaching, being around it still gives you the same feeling as a player." And I don't think I ever want to lose that feeling. So maybe I do my badges. Maybe I try and do something else to get involved behind the scenes in a club somewhere. I'm not too sure yet. But for now, it's just carry on playing.
Well, Alfie, it's been incredible to reminisce. It's been such a fun hour. It's been lovely to hear some stories from you, about those years, about 2010 in particular, about your whole career and your attitude to football. From everyone at Oxford United, a massive thank you. If we didn't thank you at the time when you left the club, it's just been lovely to reminisce with you today.
One of the most lovely hours I spent chatting to anyone. So, yeah, really loved it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me on. I enjoyed that.
Great. Thank you for listening. We will back in a few weeks, I think. We've got a few more episodes up our sleeves, a few more planned, a few more guests, which we're trying to line up. So we will hope to fill your summer months ahead of the start of the season. Thank you for listening.
The big man with a big goal on the big occasion.